Hey everybody, I have a very special guest, a good friend and a longtime client of mine. His name is Ted Learakos. Ted's been a lender since 1980. So what is that, closing in on almost 40 years now, Ted?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, so
Older by the minute, but yeah, 1980, I did my very first mortgage loan.
that's amazing. And it's amazing that you've been in the same industry for this long period of time. So you've obviously got a lot of knowledge. And on today's call, I want to extract as much as possible to help other people kind of look at everything the long game. And I put together a list of topics for us to talk about, from prospecting strategies, partnering with real estate agents and people in the real estate sphere of influence, and leveraging real-time news for conversions. Because you and I talked about one of your mentors, or one of the guys you worked with a long time ago, how he was leveraging the Wall Street Journal and how you modernized that approach to today's time. So with
Sure.
that being said, why don't you give a little background on yourself and on your bio?
Well, basically, I started doing mortgage loans in 1980. If you know about the history, interest rates were very high. Jimmy Carter had just been defeated by Ronald Reagan, and we were in a teen environment. I remember the first job I ever had, they threw a party because the next day we were going to be able to say 12.99% interest and didn't have to say the word teen when somebody asked us what the rate was.
Wow.
I think it's a good baseline because, of course, today we have people complaining that the interest rates perhaps may have gone above 3% into the fours, and that's the end of the world, and it's not. And so the point is that my background started as in the food business, Greek. Every Greek's got to have a restaurant. Every Greek's got to be a cook. And I was exposed to the mortgage market by a gentleman that I was playing baseball with. And he said, hey, why don't you come and check out what I do for a living? Because, you have a gift of gab, good looking guy. That was 1980, by the way. Um, and yeah, I think you might like it. So he exposed me to the mortgage business. He threw me in with some very, very experienced guys where I was able to learn a lot. And he also shared with me about 6 months after I started, he said, okay, kid, do you like it? Because if you like it, you like the business, I'll teach you how to be a transaction loan officer where you're going to get more and more business as years go by. If you don't like it, but you like the money, I'll teach you how to be other way around, relationship loan officer if you like it, transaction loan officer if you don't like it. Relationship loan officer doesn't make quite as much money per deal, but builds relationships over many, many years. Transaction loan officer makes a ton of dough. And within 5 years, everybody hates him. He's out of the business, but he's got a lot of money. So that was a very wise way of pitching it. And I decided I want to be a relationship loan officer because I really like this. And so that's how my career launched. And speaking of launch, this is the teaching moment where he shared with me that when you launch your career, it's like a rocket. You ever look at a rocket take off from Cape Canaveral, there is a power booster that isn't very precise, but it's raw power, puts you into orbit. That's the approach you have to take when you start your real estate or your loan career. You have to just explode. And then when you get into orbit and you've got some deals under your belt and you've got a sphere of influence and you've got success stories, that rocket breaks away and a new power booster goes in. It's not as powerful, but it's more precise. So now you're going to work on your sphere of influence and you're going to leverage every deal you close as either a real estate agent or a loan officer. You're going to leverage every deal you close to the next deal. And so that's my background. Is I started and I was coached by some of the best. You want me to reference the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, please.
Right. So I had a gentleman, he was 90 years old. He showed up every day at 10 o'clock in the morning. This was before pagers or cell phones. This was old school. And I would watch him. He'd come in at 10 o'clock in the morning, sat right next to me. He'd read the Wall Street Journal from cover to cover while I'm making calls with not a lot to say because I was inexperienced. I was just making calls. Then I'd watch him strategically make a phone call. And he would say, either to the real estate agent or to a borrower, I just read an article, page 3, section C, Wall Street Journal. It's indicating rates are going to go up. Think you might want to consider pulling the trigger on this. And he would have this conversation, which was not that remarkable, except later he would call another person and he would say, I just read an article on section D of the Wall Street Journal. Makes me think rates are going to go down. Think you might want to start sending me paperwork. That way we can be prepared for when the rates drop, we can jump on it. And I watched him do this every day. Every day he was calling clients and referencing things where if they wanted to check it out, it would verify what he was saying. It was genius. So I asked him, why do you do that? He says, because there are clients that you can motivate by the fact that rates might go up. There are other clients you can motivate by the fact that rates might go down. Everybody's motivation is slightly different. And you want to get to know your customer well enough that you can give them truthful, valuable information that feeds their motivation. It was powerful. So now as years have gone by, I, because I'm old, still read the Wall Street Journal. But thanks to you and your mad skills, I have the ability now to go online and I can find those articles. Great example is CNBC. It's, without getting into politics, it's a business network. But there's when they report something accurately, they put a spin on it. Then I go to Fox Business Network, and they report things accurately, but they put a spin on it. So basically what I've done is I've taken the Wall Street Journal approach that I was taught by a 90-year-old loan officer who'd been in the business for 60 years. I took that approach and I've adapted it. And that's what you have to do in our business. You have to adapt your technique and your approach. Anything else you want me to talk about on that subject?
No, that was absolutely powerful. I mean, I love the fact that the verifying with truthful information and understanding your client well enough where you know what's going to motivate them to make a decision to empower them for either a purchase or a sale.
Correct.
That was incredible. I love that approach. That's just brilliant because I don't hear people using terminology or leveraging real-time news very often. It's normally something like, hey, rates are going down, it's time to buy. They're not saying, hey, I just read section 8 referencing an author or a publication like Wall Street Journal saying this is what's happening. So
you take the news that is out there that your client can have access to, and you direct them to it. And when they go and they research that, it adds validity to what the message that you're delivering to them.
Definitely. Now, as far as like, how do you develop rapport with your clients so you get to the point where you know what their motivation is?
Well, I think the initial conversation is less talk, more listening. Because the less you talk and the more you listen, the more information you're going to gather about what is motivating them. I generally start every phone call, whether I'm talking to a real estate agent or whether I'm talking to a client, with a feeling out of what's their thing. You know, what are we going to talk about in the future where we can have a bonding moment? You know, for example, I picked up the phone recently, talked to a client that was referred by a real estate agent. I heard a dog barking in the background. So I started making dog references because I have 2 dogs and it can be generally pretty annoying at any given time. And so we now have a bond over our dogs. Other times you hear a baby crying. Well, I have 2 adult children, but I'm not that old. I do remember what it was like when I had to change a diaper and what they were like when they were that age, whatever that age is. So there's a bonding moment where you can bond over something that has nothing to do with real estate or mortgage loans. And what I find is that opens up the door to find out where is their motivation. perfect example. I'm talking to a client. Hear a baby crying. Now, I'm not Nostradamus, but I'm guessing that if I'm hearing a baby cry and I'm talking to them because a real estate agent suggested that I call to get them pre-approved, I'm guessing they ran out of room. This is sometimes the motivation of someone to purchase property, is they're in, say, a 2-bedroom place, and here comes the second or third kid. Or they're in a 3-bedroom place, and here comes the 4th and 5th kid. You never know what motivates someone to want to talk to a loan officer, or want to talk to a real estate agent. So you have to just be intuitive. You have to pick up things in initial conversations that allow you to have a conversation that has nothing to do with real estate or loans initially, and then you can segue, and now you have a rapport that you've built. I also think that it's important to note that you have to be relatively timely in messages that you're delivering. I'll give you one example that just happened. October 15th, HUD allows now to do spot approvals for FHA loans on condo projects that are not approved. So there is a message for every loan officer to reach out to every real estate agent and say, okay, Betty, you know that condo project right down the street, not FHA approved. There are people in there frustrated that they cannot sell because condo is typically a first-time buyer experience. First-time buyer loans, many times, are FHA loans. So condo sellers are frustrated because they know their project is not FHA approved. So now Betty gets to knock on the door and say, I can facilitate an FHA loan if you want to sell your property. This is powerful. It's happening right now. And for the real estate agents who are attacking the condo projects that are not approved, they are going to make a ton of money in the first quarter of 2020. For the loan officers who are reaching out to those real estate agents, educating them on this change, because it's kind of a subtle change. I mean, this was not on, Channel 427 News. Mm-hmm. This is not something where they, earth-shattering announcement. It's kind of a under-the-radar screen announcement to the general public, but every seller in a condo project should know about it. Every buyer who would like to buy, but maybe perhaps can't put a big down payment, they should know about it. It's just an example.
No, that's a great example. I mean, that's an income generating example. Like you said, somebody can crush it in a very short period of time because if so many people have been frustrated, this could be the relief, and not only good timing with rates maybe being a little bit more economical for some people in today's market. That was really powerful stuff. I mean, shit. I have questions like, I want you to keep talking. I mean, I don't even know if I want to ask another question, but I kind of want to just hear you keep talking about your prospecting strategies. But one topic I do want to touch on that I know will be important to all the real estate agents, because I serve a lot of realtors, also lenders, is advertising partnerships. How can loan officers partner with realtors? How can realtors partner with loan officers so they can collaborate their budgets to have a common goal?
Well, my suggestion with advertising with real estate and with loans is, and we have regulatory issues that we have to overcome, is 50-50. Just remember 50-50. If a real estate agent and a loan officer are 50-50 sharing the cost of an ad, or some sort of promotional material, then that's not a regulatory issue. And I think by doing a 50-50 agreement, what's that old adage, skin in the game? If everybody has skin in the game, it's more likely that everybody, the loan officer and the real estate agent or the real estate team, is going to work equally as hard to convert whatever leads are coming from this advertising into transactions. Where I don't think it's a good idea, and real estate agents sometimes don't like hearing this, but the fact is, if a lender is paying 100%, people naturally are a little lazy when it comes to those leads because there's no skin in the game. This is my thought. My thought also is that when an approach is taken where you create a partnership where you're going to market yourselves and attach yourselves to a real estate agent, that you have a secondary strategy, just like the power booster of the rocket that takes you into orbit. Okay, so scratching checks and putting out ads, that's the rocket booster. Takes you into orbit, puts you out there. So now what do? Well, here's what you do. You join clubs, you join Rotary, you go to events that are in the sphere of influence of the advertising you're doing. For example, if you're doing an ad in a local paper, and most papers now are online. So, I'm not talking about the guy throwing the paper on the driveway. I'm talking about an online paper that is specifically being mostly read, because online paper can be read by a guy in Sri Lanka. But the reality is a local online paper is something that it's usually the local groups that are reading it. So you want to be involved in the community. You want to be able to take perhaps a copy of that ad, join Rotary, join a leads organization, BMI. There's all kinds of groups that you can be involved with. Perfect example is nonprofit organizations. What is your personal passion? Do you want to save a whale? Then join a group that's dedicated to saving whales. If you want to join a veterans group, for example, perhaps you want to do business with veterans. Well, join the Wounded Warrior Project. Go to a local VFW. If you have a passion, you have a relative that's a firefighter, sponsor a firehouse. Nobody knows that is powerful. What do you do when you sponsor a firehouse? You basically take a bunch of turkeys there every Thanksgiving. And the point is, you, as the real estate agent and the loan officer, walking in hand, you're each carrying a turkey. We're sponsoring your firehouse. Here's your turkey, because they're all great cooks. Firemen are great cooks, by the way. Mm-hmm. Point being that it's another example of how you can leverage your shot into space, which is signing up for a marketing. And I think that's where you get the best bang for your buck. And then real estate agent and loan officer become a powerful marketing tool, because they're now marketing their own spheres of influence attached to this real estate agent. And this real estate agent is marketing her sphere of influence attached to this loan officer. So what you've got is you've got a dynamic loan officer, a dynamic real estate agent, and they're collaborating to create a marketing strategy. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, that's great. What are some good ways for real estate agents to reach out to lenders to catch their attention?
Well, I think let me start by saying what the worst way is. The worst way is to pick up a phone, call a lender and say, hey, you don't know me, but if you'd like to pay my Zillow ad, perhaps we can ride off into the sunset together for years to come with powerful lead generation systems. It's usually best if a real estate agent identifies who is the most honest, highest integrity, best reputation loan officer in the area. In other words, let's partner with someone that is of like mind. Let's partner with someone that perhaps is on the same page relative to their vision. You want to do an interview, basically. You want to talk to them. What is your plan? Would you be willing to consider this? And what ideas do you have about marketing? For example, two firemen, a real estate person and say, for example, a loan officer who has a husband who's a fireman. That's actually not a great fit, because you're hitting the same sphere of influence. But perhaps you have someone who's got a spouse in the food service business, and then the real estate agent has a spouse that's in the IT business. Well, that's a good mix. So it has to be a fit. It's like any other team. When you put together a team, you don't have to be exactly the same. In fact, you shouldn't be, but you have to be on the same page. So I think the best approach for a real estate agent is to identify 2 or 3 loan officers that have a good reputation in their area, and then sit down and have a chat with them and test the waters.
Now, when there's these mutual relationships, how can they scale that so they have multiple mutual relationships? Or is that something you don't really recommend?
No, I think it's very possible. Let me give you a great example. Let's say that there's a real estate agent that is late 50s. I'm in my 60s. We are going to partner, and we are going to put together a brochure that we're going to co-pay for, that's going to hit basically assisted living places where people may be considering leaving when they get healthy, and perhaps buying a property using a reverse mortgage. This is a powerful partnership between this real estate agent and a loan officer, because we're about the same age, and we're going to go after a demographic.
Mm.
And let's just say, for example, that real estate agent would also like to take part in first-time buyer programs. Well, then I would not be the person. What they should do is they should find a young millennial loan officer who has a sphere of influence of people that he went to college with, people he went to high school with, people he played soccer with, people he drinks with. Now, the point is, his sphere of influence is going to be a demographic that would match perfectly with the mom, sage aunt, grandmother, whatever the case may be. That's a perfect relationship. So the point is, the elderly loan officer that's helping the elderly realtor is not going to be offended that the elderly realtor would like to make a partnership with a young loan officer. So I don't think that it has to be an exclusive thing. You have to find the right loan officers, and you have to find the right realtors to make that fit. It's like a marriage.
Mm-hmm. Now, last question I have. I'm going to have more after this, so I want to do another video with you in the future. But the last one I have is, you've been in the business for almost 40 years. How have you been able to withstand all the ups, downs, pressures along the way? Or maybe you didn't have very many downs, but how have you been able to kind of withstand all of this time?
I think just consistent hard work. There's an old adage in our business, real estate and loans, is that because we don't have a time card to punch, we have to be self-motivated. We have to motivate ourselves to work, because the bottom line is, the best laid marketing plan only works if you work it. And your ability to create websites, marketing tools, blogs, all the things that you do are important, but you have to work. When the fruits of your labor turn in to a phone call, an email, a text, a Facebook post, in other words, you have to work. So I think the answer to your question is, if you like what you do, you will probably be good at it, because you'll want to continue to work. I mean, here we are, you and I, we're doing this. Can I say this? This was on Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday. A lot of the people that are going to be viewing this right now, they're either in the mall, or they're out on the field, or they're not doing what you and I are doing. We're working.
Yeah.
We're working. And we're working to help them grow their career, but they have to work as hard as we're working.
I love it. Well, with that being said, that's a great ending to this Saturday. I really appreciate you taking some time here today, Ted.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, the feeling's mutual. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.